good. It's been a big week.
Legit, though.
I don't even remember how we opened this. Oh, yes, I do.
Well, I don't, so fucking hope
What
you
do
remember.
you remember?
Fucking nothing.
You are listening to Rent Free in My Head, the podcast where we take the thoughts that are squatting in our brains and help set them up with residence in yours, free of charge. We're just that nice. Each week, Kirstyn, I don't know what she does. She just tells me a true crime tale. She's there, I guess.
Huh? And then Jeramie just, creeps me out, jinxes me, and destroys my life by telling me a mystery. Which may or may not have super bad repercussions for everyone who fucking listens to it. Big EK.
If you don't know what she's talking about, go back to episode 23, like ketchup into an apple. It definitely is not cursed at all. Nope.
No, not at all.
How are you this week, Kirstyn?
I'm so fucking exhausted, and I've only had one nap this entire week, and I just feel like I could have fit more in. Like, I should have fit more in.
I 100% vibe with that. I had a day off in the middle of the week.
How was
we
that
also
for you?
had a public holiday in the middle of the week.
All right, had
And-
to, mourn Queen Lizzie. Rest in peace, my guy.
And I also have only had one nap this week, and that was about an hour ago, and only for like 20 minutes, so...
Mine was yesterday for like 3 hours. So I think I came out better in this.
You're winning in the nap department, sure, yes.
I feel like I'm pretty much always winning in the nap department, though. Like,
I mean, usually in a work week, I'll get home at like 4:30 in the afternoon, and I will have a nap from the moment I get home until about 6:30 every day. Hasn't happened this week. Workload has just been insane and exhausting all week, so I've been in desperate need of a nap.
literally, though, like, what was with this week? It's like it was just like, you know what? Fuck all of you. You suck. I'm gonna murder you. And just like,
honestly, I cannot wait. I know it's only the first week, but I cannot wait for school holidays to be over because there's fucking crotch goblins everywhere and I'm sick of it. Sick of it.
I'm sick of them screaming all the time. Like, I get it, bestie. I also want to scream all the time. But do you see me screaming all the time? No.
Kind of.
Okay, but Jeramie, you're my friend. I scream to you on purpose.
That's fair.
But, I don't just, go around screaming in public.
The good news is I have a long weekend because I don't have to go to work on Monday. The bad news is...
Stupid bitch.
The bad news is that long weekend is jam-packed. I have a house to clean, a baby to shower. It's not my baby, but there will be a baby shower.
I don't really know if I'd trust you to shower a baby. No offense.
I don't. And we're taking it. We're doing it at the beach. I don't feel like that's more of a baby bath, but sure.
I mean,
so I have a baby bath.
Shower her with sand.
Well, that doesn't seem very productive. I don't know how we're supposed to shower the baby when she's still inside the mother either.
No, but you could shower the mother in sand and prepare her for motherhood because children will be assholes to her and just put shit on her.
That is fair. I mean, I also had Reese bombarding me all afternoon with messages about not knowing what to buy because he's like, I don't know what babies need. I'm like, bestie, I told you already. Anything to do with fire or knives and you're safe. You're covered.
Definitely.
Buy the baby some fire knives. Jesus. Done. But yeah, so we have baby bath, and then I have a games night, and then I have a concert the following night, and then the Monday that I have off is probably going to be spent editing, so I'll still be working. After all of the plans that I have that day, I don't want to exist anymore.
Well, I had work all week. I have this tonight. Then I think I'm going strawberry picking tomorrow.
Why?
Because I thought it would be fun. I'm going with Courtney. I think it'll be really cute. And, like, she can get a bunch of strawberries to eat, because I don't know if she eats strawberries.
Me either. That's exactly why I said it that way. I hate strawberries.
I like strawberry-flavoured things, and I don't mind strawberries dipped in chocolate. But other than that, I'm just really not interested. I don't like the texture. Not overly fan of the taste.
Me either. I'm a bit iffy. I mean, some strawberry flavoured stuff I'm here for, but for the most part, I'm just really not into strawbs. I don't know why everyone is.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit of a slut for a strawberry milkshake.
You're a bit of a slut for most things.
That's fair. A lot of food-related things.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to Eat Street tomorrow night, which I'm so fucking keen for. I'm going with my friend who I haven't seen in ages, so we go so good to catch up with her. But also we're going because there is, like, cob loaf pasta balls there. Right? It's like a cob loaf, but it's pasta!
Those are some of my favourite things. Cob loaf, pasta.
See if I can find you a photo, because holy shit.
Do they bounce if you throw them at the floor?
I don't think so.
Test it out tomorrow and let me know.
With pasta in a cob loaf. I found it. Okay, I'm going to try and send you a photo so you can... Oh, it's a video.
Oh, this is episode 25. How are we however many minutes into this and we haven't even acknowledged that?
Because we were talking about something more important. Look at the sky.
That's true. We're a quarter of a century old. Oh my god.
How fucking good does that look? Baked carbonara in a sourdough cob loaf. I'm literally gonna
I want to go to there and live in that cob loaf pasta ball.
I'm literally not gonna fucking eat tomorrow so that I can, like, stuff my fucking face at Eat Street.
That is fair. That is entirely fair.
I'm so fucking excited for this. And then, of course, on Sunday we have, I have, because you're a terrible friend, Bean Pie's birthday.
I'm sorry that someone bought me tickets to a concert 2 months ago.
So you should be, honestly. You are a horrible, horrible person.
Yeah, we already knew that, though.
Oh, I wouldn't be friends with you if you're that good of a person. Good people weak.
I definitely wouldn't be friends with you if I was a good person, because, well...
I'm a fucking terrible person. Ooh, lemon sorbet salad.
So, other than... Well, firstly, we're a quarter of a century old now. That's exciting. Ooh! Is that in a lemon?
Yes. How fucking cool is that? It's only...
I mean, the lemon looks a little bit manky, if you ask me, but...
I think it might be frozen. I don't know. I'm low-key...
Yeah, I assume that's, like, frostbite on the outside. It looks like it, but it's not
kind of want to try it.
Super appetizing.
But I'm going to convince my friend to share one with me, so that if it's horrible, we can experience that together.
Convince your friend to get one. You taste it, and then if it's horrible, they're stuck with it. And if it's amazing, then you can get your own.
But anyway, really exciting that this is our 25th episode. Oh my god.
And all we've talked about so far is being busy, exhausted, and food.
So that's pretty much
which
what I
is
talk about
pretty
on a
much
daily
on brand
basis.
for us. Yeah.
Literally, though. But, do you want to hear my case today?
Do I ever?
I just feel like we need to jump in.
I won't pull a Kirstyn and fall asleep halfway through this time either. I had that little nap. I just had a coffee. I'm exhausted, but I'm also, like, actually doing something this time. I think that's what my issue was that I was so tired and I was just sitting here listening. But I'm actively painting my nails because I don't have any fucking time window to do that other than right this second, so...
Can't make any promises. Kidding. I also have organised something to do while you tell your case so that my brain is doing something. Well, I do just, like, real quick, trigger warning for suicide. It doesn't actually happen, but it is discussed.
Oh, are you going to tell me about a bridge in Scotland?
Nope.
And some dogs?
Nope, you've already covered that case, Jeramie.
Damn it.
I'm going to tell you about someone in America. So,
just for something different.
Wanted to go back to my roots, so chose a lady. Also, I think you'll laugh at her name. But we'll get to that. And then she just so happened to be in America, which, like, kind of annoying, but, like, whatever. We haven't been there in a hot minute. Well, I haven't been there in a hot minute. But specifically,
I don't remember where I was. Oh, I was at sea last week, so I haven't either.
Oh, that's true. I thought you were. But you've probably been to America closer than I have.
What have I done?
Because I do predominantly Australian.
Because I was at sea, and then I did Black Eyed. The one before that was Black Eyed Kids, which, I mean, there were some stories in America, but there was no real location. And then all of my episodes before that were all of the shit about fucking Adelaide. I did 4 weeks in a row of Adelaide.
Right. Okay, fine then.
You had like a bunch of Florida men and shit like that.
Shit, I did. Fuck. Okay, fine. Yeah. Fine. Either way, guys, we're going to America. We're going to Massachusetts, to be specific.
I'm going to Massachusetts.
Ooh, that's kind of cool.
Which city?
Fall River.
Okay.
Didn't think
I'm doing Boston.
Yeah, I was like, I highly fucking doubt you're going to be the same. So, Fall River is actually the 10th largest city in Massachusetts. Super fun fact for you, because I knew you wanted to know. And apparently it's where basketball and volleyball were invented. Not really sure how true that is, but that's the extent of my care factor for that fact. Anywho, so...
Don't come at me with sports unless you're going to tell me about slamball.
You don't want me to come at you with balls?
Basically what I'm saying is I don't really care for sports, but I do have time for slamball. Do you know what slamball is?
It's just where you slam balls into people, isn't it?
I mean, it can be. No, it's kind of like basketball, except the floor's a trampoline.
Ooh, that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
But also I just feel like it would be funnier if it was just a game where you just kind of like dodgeball.
That's called dodgeball, Kirstyn.
No, but like people couldn't dodge. It'd be like
dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. The 5 Ds of dodgeball.
No, like
if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Like if you slam ball, someone has to come up and slam a ball on you, and you have to try and not cry out in pain. That's the concept of the game. And if you do cry out in pain...
Make it a medicine ball.
And then if you do, every other player, say it's like a 5-player game, has to come and slam their balls. This is why I will never be a gym teacher.
Is this like a game of assault or is it an orgy? I don't know which direction the ball slamming is going.
I mean, it depends on how you feel. If you're a fucking masochist, then it can be an orgy game. Up to you. Anyway, so introducing Kirstyn Heather Gilbert. She was born Kirstyn Heather Strickland. I low-key did choose this case because her name is similar to mine and people always call me Kirstyn. So.
Which you love.
No, I fucking want to stab people in the face. Really annoyed because I was like low-key flirting with the store support guy today and yesterday, and I'm pretty sure he thinks my name is Catherine. And I'm like, girl, my name is Kirstyn. I don't know how they fuck it up, but literally every time I answer the phone, I'll be like, hello, bleep, 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 Kirstyn speaking. And then they're like, oh, hi, Catherine. And I'm like, how the fuck are you getting Catherine out of Kirstyn? I don't know.
Well, that's awkward.
It's okay. Hopefully I can talk to him on Monday when I have to call. And I'll be like, by the way, my name's actually Kirstyn. Kirstyn Heather Gilbert was born on the 13th of November, 1967. Fun fact, that was the year before my mother was born. To Richard and Claudia Strickland. Her father was an electronics executive. No idea what the fuck that is. Didn't care to Google it. While her mother was a homemaker and part-time teacher. Also low-key why I chose this case. Apparently,
Okay.
Kirstyn was high-key a lying little bitch, though, who also had a history of faking suicide attempts to manipulate the people around her. Yes, that was why I did the trigger warning. Plus, according to some court records, she made violent threats against others throughout her teenage years.
Cool.
Aside from her absolutely fucking terrible personal skills, is it interpersonal skills? People skills.
Aside from being a shitty person.
Yep. Aside from being a shitty person, apparently she was, like, really fucking smart. And even though she had, like, all of these troubles with, you know, like, manipulating her boyfriends and her family members into thinking that she was committing suicide, and, like, threatening them and just low-key being a bit...
How you going?
Yeah. She graduated high school and she enrolled in Bridgewater State College, Massachusetts, in 1986. However, she pulled another one of her dirty tricks and did another fake attempted suicide. She also, around this time, apparently left a note for one of her boyfriends at the time that said that she had eaten glass.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Not very nutritious as far as snacks go.
Also, I just feel like it'd be really uncomfortable to eat.
Yes. Definitely uncomfortable to digest.
Literally, though. But either way, she was apparently, like, apart from, like, being a bit how you going, apparently she was, like, really, really smart. Like, in high school, she was in the math club, and she had, like, really good grades and stuff like that, so not surprising that she got into college. But then...
So she was a fucking nerd.
Yeah. But then after this stunt with the glass in college, the Bridgewater State College actually ordered her to have such psychiatric treatment. But she, like, low-key wasn't a fan of that, and so she dropped out of Bridgewater and transferred to, I did not look up how to pronounce this college, Mount Wachusett. So I'm gonna do it. Don't care if it's wrong. Community.
Spell it.
Wachusett.
Wachusett? Wachusett?
Wachusett sounds the most... Mount Wachusett. Good old Mount Wachusett. So she went on down to Mount Wachusett College.
I'm honestly, though, just waiting for the day that you give me the disclaimer of, oh, I forgot to look up how to pronounce this school name. And then it's like, Yale. Harvard. And I'm just like...
It's Harvard, and I'm like, Harvard, and you're like, how do you spell it? Havard, and you're like, it's fucking Harvard, Kirstyn. And I'm like, oh my god, isn't it? What a mood, I'm probably going to do that too. So anyway, she went
Wouldn't
to
surprise me.
Mount Wachusett. I just like saying it now. She transferred to Mount Wachusett Community College. And then she also, didn't say why, she then transferred to a different college. So she ended up at Greenfield Community College.
Okay.
Eventually, by the way, so...
Maybe the field was greener on the other side at Greenfield College.
Maybe. That's where
Maybe she just couldn't say Mount what she said, so she was like, oh, better leave.
She was like, you know what? Fuck this shit. I can't pronounce this stupid mountain. I'm going to Greenfield. The grass is greener over there anyway. Either way, she graduated from Greenfield Community College with a nursing diploma, and she would go on to become a registered nurse in 1988. So, holy fuck.
I was going to say, didn't you say she was a part-time teacher?
No, that's her mum. Oh my god, Jeramie.
Ah, okay.
Her mum
I'm paying attention.
Was a part-time teacher, honestly.
That makes more sense.
Just saying, this, took her 2 years to become a registered nurse. I feel like it takes longer now.
Yeah, I feel like we had the same discussion when we were talking about, teachers in one of your early cases.
Yes, we did.
That kidnapping one.
Yeah, because my guy was only, fucking college for 2
20.
years. Yeah, Jesus. Also, fun fact, I accidentally stapled my finger today, and I keep forgetting about it, but then I move my finger a certain way, and I can feel the pain from it. But
Right.
Anyway, back to Kirstyn.
Yeah.
So she's graduated from college or uni. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's college. I don't know. American schooling is weird. She's now a registered nurse, and it's also around this time that she meets and falls in love with Glenn Gilbert, who she obviously marries because I will now refer to her as Gilbert for the rest of the story.
Now all I can think about is Elena Gilbert.
Well, she's kind of annoying too, so it works out well.
She really is. You're not wrong.
Honestly. Love Nina Dobrev. Dobrev? You don't pronounce the V.
Dobrev?
I don't fucking know.
I don't
Anyway,
know.
Nina, whatever her fucking name is. Nina, love her. She's super cool. Got some fucking good acting skills, but fuck me dead.
Yeah,
Elena.
anytime she was Catherine or Amara, any of the other doppelgangers, I was like, okay, yeah, I like you. The second it was
the best thing
fucking
about
Elena, I'm like, ugh.
The best thing about Elena was her and Damon.
Yeah. I liked Elena when she turned off her humanity.
Oh, that
And
was
then she
cool.
turned it back on, and I'm like, okay, I'm bored of you now.
Anyway, Jeramie, back to fucking Kirstyn.
I'm sorry. I'm so distractible
God,
today.
I know she's kind of boring, but shit. Anyway, it appeared her days of manipulating and fake shitty attempts. The thing is not shitty, I'm saying it's a shitty thing to do. Either way.
Yeah.
And lying were behind her. She seemed to be, really
Not that it's a
liked.
shitty thing to do, but it's a shitty thing to, fake it to manipulate
No, that's what I
people.
mean. I'm not saying it's shitty to do.
No.
Girl. No. It's a shitty thing to lie about.
And to use to manipulate people.
Yeah, exactly, which is exactly what she was doing. She was literally lying and manipulating and using it as a tool against people, which is fucking disgusting. But apparently that was behind her. She got a job at the Northampton VA hospital. She appeared to get on really well with her co-workers. She was doing good with her superiors. Apparently she even organised a yearly gift exchange for... a yearly gift exchange for disadvantaged families. Oh my god, no.
You good?
Mm-hmm. She had expanded her family through... Oh my fucking god.
Do you need hiccouple minutes?
So bad. She expanded her family, and her husband had 2 sons. And she apparently was maintaining a burgeoning... Is that how I say that word?
Burgeoning, yeah.
Burgeoning social life. Everything seemed kind of picture perfect in Kirstyn's life. She had a great husband. They had a healthy relationship by the looks of it. She had 2 cute sons. She had a good job. She was doing well. She even was featured in the magazine VA Practitioner in April of 1990. I really couldn't find more about that, why she was featured or in what context she was featured. But I feel like it was because she was a good nurse.
Is she about to be one of those nurses that, like, kills their patients?
I don't know.
You do know, you fucking liar.
However, apparently this, like, low-key picture-perfect life was not fucking good enough for Kirstyn. Oh, her name is Gilbert. Was not good enough for Gilbert. Because there was a couple of mentions in 2 articles that she apparently, and I thought this was worth noting, that she apparently began an affair with the hospital's Seki when she was switched to night shift. And his name was...
Okay, we're seeing a lot of crossovers between our
really?
cases today, because you've got Massachusetts and an overnight shift with security guards. I also have overnight shift with security guards in Massachusetts.
Turns out we did the same case. Kidding. Mine solved. So his name was James G. Peralt. And I'm literally just gonna, like, read you a quote just because I thought it was low-key funny. This is not the super funny one that I was talking about. This is another kind of funny one.
Okay.
Their forbidden romance blossomed amidst how the fuck do you say that word? Amidst. Okay, cool. Their
forbidden love blossomed amidst whatever the rest of the sentence is.
The drama of the hospital, which also often involved Gilbert. Bum, bum, bum.
So it was basically Grey's Anatomy.
A little bit.
I don't know, I've never seen it. I just know that there's a lot of drama and... I don't know, there's fucking, 18 seasons or some shit?
Okay, like, just saying, personal opinion, that show needs to fucking stop. Give Meredith Grey a break. Let that bitch just, like, have a fucking happy ending and, like, retire or something. Or just, like, let her have a break. Fuck me. It's like bad happens to her every season. Some shows, they just carry on them too much. Anyway. The drama, you may ask? Well, other than being a pretty nurse, this is how the fucking article described her. I would not describe her this way. A pretty nurse.
Why was she an oggo?
She wasn't, like, super ugly. It was, like, she wasn't, like, super pretty either. So, one second, let me find
Not conventionally attractive.
Like, she was kind of cute, but this article, like, made out that she was, like, fucking stunning.
Oh.
Like, I've just sent you a photo. Like, she's not horrible.
Yeah.
Well, like,
she's
not a stunner.
She's cute, but I also probably, like, wouldn't look twice.
Literally, though. But this article made it out that she was, like, the hot, young, pretty nurse that was... And that's why the Seki fell in love with her. And I'm like... Or she just...
Maybe the rest of the staff were oggos.
Not sure. Either way, apart from being a pretty nurse who is super smart, Gilbert also had a nickname the other nurses would jokingly refer to her as. Any guesses on what that nickname is?
The pretty one.
No, you said it before.
Oh, I don't think I said it, I just called her, like, a nurse that kills her patients.
I'm pretty
sure. Did they call her, like... Well, they're often called, Angel of Mercy, No.
Death.
Nurse, yeah.
Angel of Death was her nickname.
Sometimes they're referred to as Angel of Mercy because in their minds they're doing it out of mercy to put them out of their misery. Killing is killing.
Literally, though. Like, if you're gonna murder people, like, at least have the decency to, like, be upfront about it.
Assisted suicide is a different situation.
It's not murder.
Those circumstances completely different, but just taking it upon yourself to just... Nuh-uh.
So at first the nurses were just kind of like, oh, isn't it funny that, like, a lot of cardiac arrests happen when you're on? Like, luckily we saved most of them. Like, there's a couple that we don't. Kind of sad. Lol, people, like, low-key keep dying around you. And apparently even a couple of the patients themselves at the hospital were like, yo, people keep fucking dying around this bitch. Like, something is going on. What the fuck?
What's that about, bestie?
And then one of them just so happened to die.
Ooh.
So then in 1996, 3 nurses reported their concern about an increase in cardiac arrest. Oh my god. Cardiac arrest deaths and a decrease in the supply of epinephrine. Sorry, I just had to read how to pronounce that.
Fair.
Which, in case you didn't know, is like an adrenaline type drug, and also ironically can be used to treat cardiac arrest. I don't know. I tried to Google more about the drug, but I just got really confused. What I got from it is that it's an adrenaline. Too much of it is a bad thing, but little parts of it can help.
Yeah, because, like, a little bit of adrenaline can bring back the heart if it's in cardiac arrest, but too much of it can bring on cardiac arrest. Kind of in the same way that, you know, antidepressants can improve depression, but they can also cause depression. Go medicine!
Sad people things. So anyway, obviously an investigation ensued because, hello, 3 nurses have turned around and been like, yo, there's a lot of fucking cardiac arrests and there's not a lot of epinephrine. Like, something is fucking happening. Also,
and they
like,
all happened during this one nurse's shift.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been, like, also, like, low-key, we have, like, a chick on the ward, like, that we, like, nickname Angel of Death. Like, just like, oh.
Just casually.
Like,
it doesn't mean anything, though.
So Gilbert was like...
We just call it that.
Gilbert was like, oh my god, what? This is crazy. Guys, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna... Beep, 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 beep. Hi, yes, there's a bomb at the VA hospital. There's a bomb there! Oh my god! I really don't know what her thought process was there, but she called in a bomb threat to the VA hospital.
Okay.
Which I think she was like, maybe if I do this, it'll distract them from the investigation, but then it kind of didn't really work for her because then they just arrested her for doing a fake bomb threat.
So it kind of blew up in her face, is what you're saying.
Oh my god. Yes. Yes, it is. So she stood trial for the fake bomb threat in January of 1998, and she was convicted for it in April of 1998. So also just worth noting, lol, that she did leave the hospital in 1996 when the reports of this creepy shit first happened. So pretty much, like, the nurses reported it. They were like, yo, something is fucking going down. Yeah. She was like, oh, fucking something's happening. Everyone was pretty much blaming her. So she was like, fuck, I gotta go. So she fucked off from the...
Also not sus at all.
Right? Neither. She's not... Look, she's kind of dumb. So, she fucked off. During this time, it did say the fall of 1996, so that would be, like, now-ish. Oh, cool, so, like, September.
Yeah.
She apparently...
Well, at the time of recording, today is the first day of fall for the Northern Hemisphere. Not for us. We don't have fall, we have autumn, and it's also spring currently.
But anyway... So, apparently after that, she would check herself into psychiatric hospitals 7 times, staying between 1 to 10 days each time.
Okay.
Also around this time, only one article said this, but I still was like, lol, I'm totally gonna tell it. Apparently she tried to kill her husband. Yeah, so...
How?
Well, apparently...
Why? I mean, I don't really need to ask why. I'm assuming it just because he's a man.
Yeah, I think she was just
perhaps
like,
is reason enough, honestly.
Fucking sick of him. So...
Fair.
I don't really know why. It didn't really say why. But I didn't write down the specifics of it. I wrote down a little bit of it. So apparently her marriage was dissolving because, like, 1, she was fucking the security guard. 2, people thought she was fucking killing people. So apparently she began to prepare home-cooked meals allegedly laced with a drug to increase her husband's frequency of peeing. Yeah. And then...
There's a drug for that? I suppose if there's a laxative...
There would be a peeing
Then
version.
there's a... Yeah. Where do you get the opposite of that so that I can have that?
Don't know. But either way, Glenn Gilbert started to get sick. He was taken to the emergency room. She went with him, and then she allegedly tried to poison him while he was receiving care at a local civilian hospital. So the Cooley Dickinson Hospital. She said she wanted to take a blood sample of her husband herself and have it tested later at the hospital that she worked. One syringe was filled with clear liquid, and she told her husband it was just a saline solution. But as soon as she inserted the needle, Glenn reportedly said that his arm grew cold, and when he tried to pull away, she pinned him against the wall with her hip. So...
The hospital let her...
See, that's why I'm not really sure about the validity.
Take a blood sample... Yeah,
that's why I was a bit like, not really sure about the validity of this claim. It was also only mentioned in one article, but I still thought it was kind of interesting.
If you were saying this in 1930, I would be like, yeah, probably. But in 1998, that wouldn't have happened.
Well, yeah. No, yeah, it does happen in 1998. But yeah, so he survived the incident, whatever. And then there was conflicting things. So they divorced officially in 1998, and some reports said that Kirstyn just straight up and left her husband and children for the Secchi. So...
Okay.
Don't know what she was thinking about that. But anyway. So... Obviously, because she did all of the fucking sketchiest responses to the investigation happening, she was officially arrested on July. See, this is where the timeline gets a bit confusing, I'm not going to lie to you. So she was arrested in July 11th, 1996, but the stuff with her husband happened in 1998, so I don't know if she was, arrested in July, and then she was kind of, out while she was on trial? It was really it was kind of hard to piece together the timeline, I'm not gonna lie to you, because it kept being 1996, 1998, 1999, and I was like, fuck me, what? By the way, she was arrested at some point.
Sometime. An arrest occurred.
Yes. And she was officially... charged with... Let me just get up the charges, because I didn't want to write them all down, because it was...
A lot?
Well, it wasn't a lot, but it was just kind of annoying for me to write down.
Fair.
Not gonna lie to you. Okay, so on March 14th, 2001, a federal jury convicted Gilbert on 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, and 2 counts of attempted murder. Though Massachusetts does not have capital punishment, her crimes were committed on federal property and thus are subject to the death penalty. She didn't get the death penalty, which I guess is kind of good. But the jury and judge the jury recommended a life sentence, and the judge formally sentenced her on the 27th of March to 4 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole plus 20 years. And she is now serving in Fort Worth, Texas, where she has remained since pretty much the beginning. So...
How did she end up in Texas?
I'm not really sure. It said that she was originally in a prison for women in Framingham, Massachusetts. And then, she went to Fort Worth, Texas. I think maybe it's just a bigger prison, or it serves better long-term people. But the little line that I wanted to read to you was on this website called Killer Cloud, where it's literally just like, it's like random bits of information about serial killers and stuff like that. So it's got like a little profile.
Like cloud as in like a database, not like a cloud that is killing
database,
people.
Sorry.
I was
it's
like
a database. No. So she, obviously it's got her first name, it's got Kirstyn Gilbert, the Angel of Death. She was active for 8 years. And I just love this one particular crime, this one particular sentence. I was reading through it and it just made me laugh so hard. In 1988, aged 20 to 21, Kirstyn Gilbert started her killing spree. During her crimes as a serial killer, she was known to murder her victims. That's the whole fucking sentence!
That's how...
I don't know. I was like reading through it and I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of helpful with the timeline and like the confirmed kills and stuff like that. And I was scrolling down and I just read serial killer and I was like, oh cool. And then I was like, during her crimes as a serial killer, she was known to murder her victims. I was like, that's the point of a serial killer.
It's
They're
kind
murderers.
of how they become labelled that. They kill their victims serially.
So yeah, the 4 victims that she was convicted for were named Henry Hudden, Kenneth Cutting, Edward Squira. I'm so sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
Oh, dang it. The first 2 had this alliteration thing going on, and I was hoping that, like, the third one would too.
The 4th one doesn't either. It also has a really complicated last name, and again, I apologize to anyone if I fucking pronounce this wrong. And then Stanley...
Yelnats?
No. Jagodowski. I'm so sorry that I just butchered that. This poor man is dead. So although she was convicted for 4 murders, it's actually more likely that she killed, like, hundreds of people.
Cool. Love that.
Yes. So I think there was one estimate that said 350.
Just a couple more than 4.
And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, so it was later estimated that she was on duty during half of her ward's 350 deaths in a 7-year span. The odds of that being an accident were 1 in 100 million. There was also never really an explanation for a reason, like, for why she killed these people. Like, we don't know if she was just one of those people that had, like, a hero complex where she wanted to, like, be the one who came in and saved them and then just kind of fucking sucked at it. Or one article did suggest that she had a arousal to it. And that she originally started the affair with the Seki because she needed a bit more spice in her life, and then when that wasn't enough, she began killing people because she got really turned on when she was watching life drain out of people's faces.
Why is it spicy?
Why is it spicy?
That is too spicy.
Literally, though, I was like, damn, bitch. Or there was also one that just said that she was a narcissistic and she liked everyone looking at her.
I'm going to go with that one because Bestie was faking suicide for attention and manipulation.
Yeah, I was like, I think she just liked attention, y'all. I think that's literally it. And she was just a shitty person.
Yeah.
So that's the story of Kirstyn Gilbert. Bit of a massive piece
I
of
hate it.
shit. No problem. I'm glad I could help you with that.
Actually, no, it was an interesting story. It was like, also.
I feel like it wasn't one of the worst ones I've done.
Oh, hey, I've still covered the worst.
Literally, though. So
I don't think I don't see anything beating family murders anytime soon.
No, it really won't. Like, I know of a case that could beat that, but I don't know if I want to beat that.
Yeah, probably not, hey.
Because there's one case that I low-key want to do, but I also know that it's really, 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 really bad. And it's a lot worse. It's not, like, worse, but...
It's just, it's bad.
It's on par with the disgusting things that happens.
Very yucky.
Members. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's me for this week.
I love that. Well, that's perfect timing because I just finished applying the top coat to my nails, so they're done.
Yay!
It's actually come out like silver, which I'm really hardcore vibing with. I like it.
They look gold to me, but like it's vibing.
I'm here for it. I'm vibing. Cool. Well, we're in for a little bit of a journey today because I had super big plans for this episode, and most of them have not come to fruition. So we're going on a bit of an adventure, and it's just as much an adventure for me as it is for you because, well, I haven't really finished my notes. Long story short, there's a docuseries that I found that I really wanted to watch that happened to cover a case that was on my list as something that I really wanted to do. It's a really interesting case. It's fascinating. And I've read about it before. I've heard about it before. And I was like, okay, well, how about I watch the docuseries and use that as some of my research. And then later in the week, I'll just go through and, find some articles and stuff to go with it, just to flesh it out a bit. Firstly, fleshing it out is not a concern, because I wrote, 7 or 8 pages worth of notes.
Yeah, I remember you sending me a Snapchat, and you were like, I'm on episode 2 or something, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. I also didn't finish the docuseries. I still have an episode left. But that's fine, because the majority of the information that I needed and did get came from episode 1 anyway, because I was more interested in the what happened aspect, not all of the other stuff that went down. I will burn that bridge when I get to it. And then also, because of the week that was and my exhaustion, I didn't get to sit down at my computer at any point to actually type them up or add to them. So I will be reading the handwritten notes that I scribbled out
Jeramie's
while watching.
Doing a Kirstyn.
Once again. Just in a different way this time, because I did a Kirstyn 2 episodes ago where I just didn't compile notes and I read to you instead. And last week I pulled a Kirstyn by falling asleep in the middle of your segment.
Go team.
We spend too much time together. But I did kind of run through these with Mateo to see if they were coherent, and he was able to follow what I was saying, which normally he can't. So that's a good sign. I also realised about 5 minutes before we started this call that I don't have any fun facts prepared. But I thought we could go on that adventure together, and I can just do some Googling and find some fun facts that will be just as fun to me as they are to you, because I won't have heard them before. So, first things first.
I'm the realist.
I'm the realist. I will be covering a crime that occurred in Boston.
Massachusetts.
Boston, Massachusetts, yes. And I've kind of framed this a certain way, which is a similar way to the way that the first episode of the docuseries framed it, but I really liked the way that they did that, so I'm going to stick with the way that that's been done. Before I go and get some fun facts, I'm just going to go through and give you a little blurb thing that I've kind of written out.
Ooh.
Sort of. Not really. Kind of. So, this crime occurred on the weekend of St. Patrick's Day in Boston, Massachusetts in 1990. And a quote from, I think it was one of the cops or the feds, it was a person in the docuseries, is as follows. Whatever drunken revelry was occurring across the city, who knows? But it was a good time to commit a crime.
That rhymed.
It did. I had that exact same thought as I was reading it out just then. So, this case, which I will tell you what it is after the fun facts that we're both going to experience together, was Boston's biggest unsolved or still is, Boston's biggest unsolved mystery, and also the biggest art heist in the world.
Oh.
And at the time leading up to its occurrence, everything seemed normal. In fact, witnesses even report walking down the street at approximately 12:45 a.m., the street was quiet, and there were two policemen sitting in a car, two uniformed policemen sitting in a car outside the museum in question that night. So, as it should be, I guess. But we'll get to that. So I guess I'm just going to quickly Google fun facts about Boston and see what we get.
Mm-hmm.
Fun facts about... No, not beer. I have such a strange suggestion history. Fun facts about beer. Fun facts about tiles. Fun facts about Saturn. Boston, Massachusetts. Here we go. 15 interesting facts about Boston, culturetrip.com. That seems... Let's go with that. Oh, okay, this saves me a whole different Google search at the end of this. 2 in 1. I was also going to search for weird Boston laws. There are several weird laws technically still in place. Shortly after the Puritans arrived in Boston, they established strict laws that prohibited many of what you might consider fun activities today, such as card games and drinking. In time, most of those laws were changed. Okay, good, because how the fuck are you supposed to have a games night if you can't play card games or drink? But several of them are still technically in effect. Those include the need for a special license to wear a goatee. No one should have a goatee anyway, so fair. It being illegal to take a bath without a doctor's prescription.
What? I love baths.
Not without a doctor's
But also,
approval,
how
you know.
the fuck would they know I'm taking a bath?
It's the same thing as when I did, was it Georgia? I think it was Atlanta that had the weird law about, bath taking as well. Maybe it was Indiana. I don't know, it was one of them. It was fucking one of yours.
Fucking America's weird.
Disgusting.
That was fucking one of yours. Love that shit.
And being illegal to snore with your windows or doors open at night.
Fair.
Not to mention the 2 state laws prohibiting swearing, including one with a maximum penalty of a year's imprisonment and another with a $50 fine for swearing at a player or an official in a sporting event.
I would not fucking
Those-
last.
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't last 5 minutes. I have never heard you go 5 minutes without swearing.
Hi, what I'm at? No, I can't even say that because I swear a lot at work.
You really do. I have heard you serve a customer without swearing and then turn around and the next word out of your mouth is just, fuck. Shit.
Look.
Though still on the rule books, luckily most, if not all, of these rules are not really enforced. Oh! Okay, there's
Thank
another good one to follow
God.
this too, on the same note. Christmas was once banned for over 20 years.
What the fuck?
Among the odd blue laws that the Puritans put in place when they settled in Massachusetts was the outright ban on celebrating the Christmas holiday in 1659.
Well, fuck them.
Reasons for the ban varied, including the holiday's pagan roots and how it was celebrated, but there was a 5-shilling fine if you were caught in the Christmas spirit. However, after 22 years without a public Christmas, the law was eventually taken off the books in 1681.
Jesus Christ, that's still like a lot.
Let's not... I'm just going to note this one, but I'm not really going to go any further into it because I don't really want to. Because I completely forgot about the whole Massachusetts Puritan connection until I got to this. Because Salem is in Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah.
Before the Salem witch trials, there were the Boston witch hangings. Don't love that.
Lovely.
Let's go with this one and then call it a day. You can thank Boston for the following inventions. A Brookline man named King Gillette, who went on to create the Fortune 500 company of the same name, invented the first disposable razor in 1901. While the microwave, the one that you put your food in, not the one that you talk into, because apparently that's what you think they're called. The microwave was invented accidentally in the 1940s by Boston's Percy Spencer.
When he walked past with a chocolate bar in his pocket. Isn't that hard?
Possibly, but it's funny that you mentioned chocolate. For food lovers, the chocolate chip cookie recipe came from Ruth Wakefield of the Toll House Inn in nearby Whitman. And marshmallow fluff came to us from Somerville across the Charles River. And then Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook while he was at Harvard.
Yeah, but who gives a shit about that?
Who cares? Okay, there we go. Those are the fun facts. I'm really sorry. I was not planning to phone it in today. But then this week happened. And it's fine. You get what you get. You don't get upset. So this week I will be telling you about the Gardner Museum heist in 1990, Boston, Massachusetts. As I said earlier, my notes I basically got from watching a docuseries, which is on Netflix. It's called This Is a Robbery. It's 4 episodes. Each episode is about an hour long. I only watched the first 3. The majority of my notes came from episode 1. Which is basically the information that I kind of already knew about it. I just found it easier to... Because I was like, I'll watch the docuseries because then I can, write down what, people's reports of it as I'm watching it. Maybe get some quotes. And then I'll fill in the blanks from articles and stuff.
Yeah,
the last
sense.
part didn't happen. I didn't watch the last episode yet either. I tried to last night, but... I was fucking wiped out. It was not happening.
What a mood.
It's
I
fine.
put a movie on the other night and fell asleep within 5 minutes of starting it.
I didn't fall asleep, but I pressed play as I put my food in put my dinner in the oven, and I was waiting for it, and I couldn't even get 5 minutes in being like, this is too much information. I just need to put on a mindless Sims video and watch that because I
get that way last night. That was me last night. I just put on a YouTube video.
Which is also why I've gone back to watching Gilmore Girls from the start, because that's just something mindless that I can just throw on and not have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
It's also just plain a great show. Alright, so the Gardner Museum, which is... Its full name is actually the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, but it's most commonly referred to as the Gardner Museum. I'd never actually heard the full name until the docuseries.
Oh. Who is Isabella Stewart? Is that her name?
Isabella Stewart Gardner was the founder, which I'll go into that briefly in a second. I have only ever heard of it referred to as the Gardner Museum heist, like it's in my list of cases to cover as Gardner Museum heist. I've come across it in multiple listicles as that. I'm pretty sure the other pods that I've heard cover it referred to it as the Gardner Museum. So I was a bit confused at first when they mentioned, because it was like in the very first minute that they said something about the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, and I'm like, is this docuseries not about the museum I thought it was? And I'm like,
I fuck up?
It says biggest biggest art heist, Boston, Massachusetts, 1990. It has to be the same museum. I'm so confused. But yeah, it's just that's the full name. So Isabella Stewart Gardner broke ground in 1899, and at that time there was nothing there. Apparently, they basically referred to it as just being a swamp. I don't have any photos of it, but you can probably find it by Googling the museum. It is beautiful. And this is someone else's description of it, but I agree with that. It's very plain and boxy on the outside, kind of just a building, kind of boring. But on the inside, so in the middle, there is just this courtyard. It's verdant, it's luscious, it's green, there's plants up the wazoo. So pretty, so lively, like completely different to the outside. And then all of the galleries stem off from this courtyard and surround this courtyard and have windows looking out to it. Let me do a quick Goog and see if I can find an image of it, because I actually really, and all of the galleries as well, like each one has its own theme.
Ooh.
Which we'll kind of touch on a bit. So that's the outside.
Oh yeah, pretty boring.
See what I mean? Quite boxy, quite boring, nothing really special going on.
Bit of a random why? What? Wait.
Yeah,
what?
I don't know what that's about. And then the one that I've sent is the courtyard, but I'm gonna send probably some more of the courtyard because it's just so pretty.
Oh my god.
Right?
Damn.
It's so pretty. Like,
holy fuck.
not
I want to go
not what you
here.
expect. Yeah. And then all of those galleries connect off of that and just look down into it like...
I would just fucking be here every day.
Yeah. What kind of person
really
are you in a museum?
It does not look... What do you mean? Like, give me your, like, people and I'll tell you which one I am.
Well... So we've already covered this when I talked about the time that Reese and I went to the art installation exhibit thing at the Botanical Gardens, and Mateo ended up tagging along, despite me saying it's not your thing, because he's someone who just looks at it and then goes, okay, or I don't get it, and then walks away. Whereas Reese and I are people who, and I'm the same in like a museum or whatever, I stand there, I stare at it, I soak it. I suppose this would more be an art gallery than a museum anyway, because it's like, but same thing in a museum.
In a museum, I'm
the kind of person that like looks at it, so like takes it in, then reads the plaque and the information about it. If it's art with an artist's statement, with their intention or whatever, I'll read that as well. And then I'll look at it again with that in mind and really soak it in before I move on to the next thing. Whereas Mateo's just walks up, looks at it and goes, okay. And then walks on to the next thing or leaves.
I, at a museum, am very much someone who likes to read all the little bits of information about everything.
Yeah.
Because I want to know. I want to know what happened. I want to know the lives. Like, I want to know how this came about.
So, yeah, you'd fit in on a trip with Reese and I. Mateo can just go by himself and do his own thing.
We'll
would
put
mean
Mateo in the car with like a book or some Netflix on or something.
He could just go to like the daycare or something.
We'll drop him off. We'll be like, okay, we'll be back for you in a couple of hours.
Literally. But yeah, so that's basically what the museum is. Like, that's the outside compared to the inside. And someone, like, this is a quote that I really liked about it because I actually think that it rings really true. It's not a museum. It was her work of art. An architectural spectacle. Yeah. The museum itself is also a work of art.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, then they talked a little bit about night shift and how, you know, it was always the same thing. You come in, you do your rounds, which would be walking through the museum at night with the lights turned off. All you have is your flashlight, how spooky that was. And I'm like, look, I've worked overnight shifts before. I can confirm, even with all the lights on, it's still kind of spooky. I think it's just something to do with that time of night being somewhere that's usually full of people and is now currently dead silent. So I was like, can relate. And then you just sit at the desk waiting for something to happen. However, nothing ever did. Night after night, year after year, sitting around waiting for nothing. But then it did. So as I said earlier, this occurred on the weekend of St. Patrick's Day, which St. Patrick's Day is the 17th of March, is that correct?
Couldn't tell you.
Yes, it is the 17th of March, which in this case, that was a Saturday. However, in Boston, the St. Patrick's Day parade actually happens on the 18th. So they have the actual St. Paddy's Day where everyone celebrates and drunken revelry occurs, especially if it's on a Saturday night, which, fair. And then on the 18th, they have the actual parade for St. Paddy's Day. And this occurs in South Boston. And they said that every year it draws in thousands of people, and as well as that, there is just a massive police presence, which, fair, it's a parade, it's a crowd, makes sense. However, oh my god, it was, some of the people in this docuseries had, I mean, it was fascinating as fuck. Definitely recommend watching it if you want a real deep dive into this case. Like, what I'm going to say is just going to be, like, barely scratching the surface. But, like, one of the two people had that very strong Boston accent.
Coffee.
Yes,
I want to go get some coffee.
And I was... I forget about the Boston accent until I hear the Boston accent, and I'm like, oh, right. That's a thing. Are you a corp?
I want to get some coffee.
Actually kind of relevant to this case, though. Anyway, so yeah, the South Boston, where the parade is crowded. But then the area where the museum is, which is kind of a bit more off to the west of Boston, a bit different area, it's generally quiet. And so at 7:30 a.m., the morning shift arrives, and she's there to take over for the night shift guards, send them home. And she said normally what happens is she'll get there, and she'll buzz, and then they'll buzz her in, and then she'll take over. But the overnight guards weren't buzzing her in, and after a while she's like, okay, well, this isn't going to work. So she called the chief of security, And he rocked up and let her in via a back door. But upon entering, apparently they just were hit with an immediate sense that something was wrong. Cameras were turned to face the wrong direction. The office door had been busted open. The other guards, the overnight seckies, were nowhere to be seen. Maybe they were off shagging a nurse, who knows?
Probably.
But then in the office, there was also an empty frame on one of the chairs and a crowbar leaning up against the wall. She actually said that the chief of security picked up the crowbar and immediately handed it to her and said, "Hold this." And first she's standing there going, "Now my hands are all over it. Is this evidence? Are my fingerprints on it?" And then she's like, "Hang on. He's handed me this so I can wallop someone with it.
Yeah.
Oh no, are they still in the building?"
Bless. I love that that's her reaction. She's like, "Oh no, fingerprints." And she's like, "Oh, fuck, people."
Also, though,
Fair.
kind of weird because it's 1990. How prevalent were fingerprints back? I mean, fingerprints
Isn't that
existed.
when they were, like, just coming out in police force?
Yeah. Because, like, a lot of stuff that should have been collected, if you look back at it from today's glasses, were not collected and taken care of very well, meaning that's also made it really difficult to follow it up with advances in technology, which is often the case with a lot of these kinds of things too. But they've called the police.
1857
Was what?
was when, like, the origin of
Fingerprints.
fingerprinting. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I guess fingerprints were quite common back then. DNA wasn't. I mean, DNA was a thing. It just
Probably
wasn't
like...
something we were aware of at the
Yeah.
time. It still existed. No one invented DNA.
Nope, I
Well, I
invented
guess-
it. It was me.
Sure. Anyway, the police come and they begin a search and everything, and that's when they eventually find the overnight guards, the seckies, as you so eloquently dubbed them.
So cold.
The two overnight guards, who were Rick and Randy. I know, Rick is such a funny name, right?
Yeah, that's the name I was laughing at.
Rick and Randy, the overnight guards, were located in the basement, and they had been tied up with duct tape. And then on top of that, they actually had duct tape over their eyes and their mouths. And Rick had very long, thick, curly hair. And the duct tape went around the top of his head and around his whole head with his hair in it. Like, literally, the second I saw the image, my first thought was just, ow. Like, even worse than Duct Tape Bandit. Because this guy's hair was, I mean, I suppose Duct Tape Bandit's hair was also in it, but he did that to himself.
Yeah, he did that purposely. Like, that's his own fucking fault.
Yeah. And also, this guy had really thick, long hair, and, like, the tape was through the middle of the hair, so, like, ow.
Ouch.
I don't want to think about how much of that got ripped out as he took the... But at this point in the documentary, they were also, like, the feds and the researchers were also talking about how they've always wondered and questioned why they actually taped them up and let them live and bothered to, like, duct tape over their eyes and mouths, because dead men tell no tales.
True.
But
Maybe
it's also mentioned...
They're just not...
It's also mentioned that, like, one of the people kept coming back to check on them, make sure that they were okay, if they'd had water and stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, that's...
Less.
At least they were nice, maybe that's
When you're
why.
a shitty person for stealing, but you're not that shitty of a person.
Anyway, as they went through the museum, the state that they found it was not ideal. So they found frames tossed on the floor, completely bare of the artwork. However, they hadn't just taken the backs, like they hadn't just unscrewed these artworks from the frame and taken them out that way. A knife had been used. Someone had
to cut them out.
Yes.
What the fuck,
and
dude?
they went and explained this. Firstly, these are like, I can't say they're priceless artworks because they do have a price on them, but historically priceless artworks because they're so important to history. And keep in mind, they're still missing to this day. That's why it's an unsolved mystery. But these artworks weren't just one canvas. It was like multiple layers or whatever. And it's not something that you can just like cut out of a frame and then roll up like a blueprint or whatever and walk out with, because rolling it up, like, they're such old paintings. The paint is already cracked and everything, and any rolling up or anything of it is going to immediately crack it further and just damage these priceless artworks. Not priceless, I'm calling them priceless artworks. They might have a monetary price on them, but just in regards to history and culture, they're priceless.
Yeah.
So this would be very time consuming. Whereas literally just like undoing some screws would be so much quicker and easier. So 13 works had been taken in total. They had been taken from 3 different rooms. The Dutch room and the short gallery, which were both on the 2nd floor. And then the blue room, which was on the 1st floor. So the works taken from the Dutch room were a Rembrandt painting. It was a seascape, and apparently it was actually his only seascape ever. So it was super important, and it actually was quite stunning. They showed it a lot. Let me see if I can find it. I did not come prepared for today at all. I mean, I kind of did, just not as prepared as I normally am. So, this is the Rembrandt painting that was taken, or one of the Rembrandt paintings that was taken. His only seascape, called Storm on the Sea, Galilee. It is quite stunning. It is very culturally and historically important, given that it was his only seascape, and it also depicts the biblical story of Jesus calming the storm. So Jesus is on this boat. I don't know anything about that story because reasons.
You just didn't care. Go.
I spend so much of my time reading the Bible. What are you talking about?
Ooh, it's very pretty.
See, it really is. Like, I would put that in my house. I mean, I feel like anyone would put that in their house. It's a fucking Rembrandt. It's worth a lot of money.
I was like, no, but I really like this light coming through and the fucking waves crashing. Also so random that Jesus is on it, but like, it's a mood.
It's
also,
stunning.
I'm just saying, okay, have you seen Disney Pocahontas?
Recently, no. At some point in my lifetime, yes.
Okay, but does the kid on the top, like, left, low-key not look like Thomas from Pocahontas? I think his name is Thomas.
Yeah. They said at one point, I don't know if this is true or not, but or if they were just like saying it, but the guy that's looking directly at us in the middle of the image, or in the middle of the boat, they said something about that being Rembrandt looking directly at you knowingly.
Oh. Okay.
Like that he painted himself into the picture. Oh yeah, no, I see it.
Like,
that does look like the same guy, yeah. I do. But anyway, so yes. Taken from the Dutch room was 2 Rembrandt paintings, which is The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, which I just showed you, as well as A Lady and Gentleman in Black. A Vermeer painting called The Concert. A Flink called Obelisk in the Landscape, as well as a bronze Chinese vase, a kind of like a beaker, they defined it as, from the Shang Dynasty, and a Rembrandt self-portrait etching, which is basically like the size of a postage stamp. Oh. So not super huge. Dang. So all of those were taken, and then in the same room, a painted self-portrait of Rembrandt had been taken off the wall, and the frame was sitting with its back facing the room. And so the curator actually assumed that she was going to turn it around and it had been cut out of the frame as well, but it was still there. So it had been taken off the wall, but not taken. However, someone else mentioned
watching them steal his paintings.
Yeah, someone else mentioned that particular self-portrait of Rembrandt was known for its eyes following you around the room. So they probably just were like, I feel a bit sketchy.
So like, this is mad fucking creepy.
Watching me do it.
Why are you watching me, people?
And then in the short gallery, they took 5 Degas works on paper, as well as a bronze finial from the Napoleonic flag, which was like a little bird statue thing sitting at the top of the flagpole. Okay. Which they unscrewed that as well. And then from the blue room, which was the only one on the first floor, they took a Monet, which I'm going to jump in because Mateo immediately connected me and said, it's Monet. And I'm like, different painter.
I was literally touching the exact same thing. I was going to say, do you mean a Monet?
No. So not a Monet, a Manet. I think his name was Eduardo Manet. I'm not 100% certain. I only wrote down their last names because that's how they defined them all, and then like the info showed up on the screen with the full name, and I was like, I'll just go with what you've said. And that was a painting called Chez Tortoni, or one of the non-art people, a witness kept referring to him as Chez Tortellini. And I'm like, fair.
Right.
Now, the monetary value of these works taken, when they said it in this, I was like, that sounds like a lot less than what I've heard in the past, but it might be because...
Sorry, I thought I could hear a kid screaming. Yep, stop now.
Is there someone at your door?
Oh, fuck off, Jeramie. You evil person.
As far as monetary value goes, because as I said, personally, I would say that these are priceless works of art because, especially now that they're lost. But
it's just super sucky. Like, even if you don't want to get charged for it, like, just drop them back. Like, you fucking stole it without anyone knowing. You can sure as shit put it back without anyone knowing.
Yeah. Initially, and I think this was like news footage that was showed in the documentary. Initially, the day of, it was basically valued at being over $200 million in value in total.
Dang.
However, I've also
just gotten more.
I've also seen, read, and heard it mentioned as being $500 million in total. So I don't know if that's inflated. Yeah. Either way, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of art stolen. And initially,
it's fucking expensive.
Initially, there was a $1 million reward put out. It then got raised up to a $5 million reward. And I think I'm assuming because the final episode of the docuseries, the one I haven't watched yet, is called $10 million reward. And I'm pretty sure that's what it's currently at. However, the likelihood of these works ever being found are slim to none. It's been 32 years.
Okay. I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a hot second, and I'm just going to point out they're worth $500 million. The reward is $10 million.
Yes, but, and
Oh, we see a bit of a discrepancy there.
I have this, okay, but I have this further on in my notes, but I'll just say it now. This was either a really, really dumb robbery, or it was a collector who was prepared to keep these works private for all eternity, because these are works that would not at all be possible to fence, even without the, like, I think the internet existed in 1990. I'm pretty sure the internet existed in 1990, but it was still, like, dial-up and not great or anything.
All I remember
it wasn't what we have
is
now.
that I'm older than Google.
Yes. Are you older than Google? I know I'm older than Google. I thought Google was early 96.
No.
Like, earlier than you, 96.
I'm pretty sure I'm older than Google. Because I always
Maybe.
thought that I was younger.
But these, like, at this point in time, shortly after, everyone knew what these works were, surely. But, like, they were plastered everywhere. This was the biggest art heist in history. And there was a $1 million to $5 million reward up for grabs. Yes, you may speak. I don't know why you're raising your hand. This isn't class.
So Google was officially launched in 1998 by Larry Page and Sergey Brin. But...
Was it early 98?
My god, Google, I'm not talking to you. No, it's okay. Google, stop! No. Google, stop! Stop! Fuck me, bitch! Just stop! Okay, thanks. Stupid bitch. Oh,
This-
my God.
Remember the time that I was, like, trying to sleep and it was 3 a.m. and all of a sudden the Google Home in my bedroom just randomly started telling me the definition of ghost, and I was like, thank you for that! Definitely not in a haunted room right now. Of all the things for you to tell me at 3 in the morning when I'm trying to sleep, you chose at full volume to tell me a ghost is an entity or a spirit haunting after its death.
She just thought you really wanted to know. What you're probably thinking of is that the dudes who invented it, I'm not going to say its name because it'll set off her, while they were still students at Stanford University, they developed a search algorithm. Thank you. At first known as Backrub, which is like, why the fuck would you name it Backrub? In 1996, with the help of 2 other people. So that's probably what you're thinking of.
Maybe.
But Google was born in 1998. So technically...
You're whispering the wrong part.
Oh, yeah.
Shouldn't you have whispered Google?
I like your negativity.
But yeah. So, as I was saying, these works weren't things that they could fence because someone would have spotted them instantly. Even on the black market, if there's $1 million up for grabs, they'd be stupid not to take it. And then as well as that, they're not something that they could display openly because the second you have guests, they're going to walk in and go, well, isn't that painting that everyone's looking for? I don't really like you that much. If I can have $1 million, I'm going to throw you under the bus, mate. So unless the people that took it were just really, really, really dumb and didn't think about, hey, how are we going to sell this? Or someone was prepared to just, like, keep it in their basement for them to go down and look at every day and then no one else knows that they have it outside of them, so it's suddenly kind of worthless, goes from priceless to worthless, then...
Yeah, but it's in the eye of the beholder. Not one man's trash is another man's treasure.
But also they're not going to offer a $500 million reward because firstly, where are they going to source that money from? And secondly, then the person who stole them is going to go, here, you can have them back now because I'm loaded now.
I mean, it could have been a tactic to get them back. I'm just saying.
Anyway, so this leads me to what happened. So this was everything that was found after the fact. Now I'm going to jump into the story of, well, how did the heist actually occur? So Richard Abath, Rick, one of the security guards, this is his account. He was at the desk doing his thing, and he spotted and two cops appeared on the security camera, and this is at about 1:24 a.m. And remember, I mentioned that there were two uniformed police in a car outside the museum at 12:45 a.m. Yeah, that they weren't supposed to be there. It also wasn't a police car that they were in; it was just a hatchback.
Awkward.
So, they weren't hired police to be watching. They were just there. It was kind of a bit of a mislead. So, these two cops appear on the security camera at the front door, and they've rung the bell, claiming that they are there because there's been reports of a disturbance on the premises. Not sure who would have reported this, considering it's Rick and Randy there, and, well, surely they would be aware if either of them had reported it. But
communication is key.
They've asked to be let in to investigate, and so, given that they're cops, Rick buzzed them in. They come into the office, ask him if he is alone, to which he says, no, I have a partner, he's just off doing rounds. And they've said to him, cool, get him down here. So he walkies Randy and is like, yo mate, get down here. We have a sitch. So Randy comes down, and that's when one of the cops looks at Rick and says, wait, don't I know you? Don't I recognize you? I think there's a warrant out for your arrest. So this cop then orders Rick to step out from behind the desk, which he does, and immediately tells him to get up against the wall facing it and handcuffs him, while the other does the same to Randy. So they've handcuffed both guards before one of them dramatically says, gentlemen, this is a robbery.
Oh my god, what a movie.
So the
That's totally a line from
cops... Oh, I'm sure. I kind of want to see if there is a movie inspired by this. Yeah. So he's then given a description of the two guys. One were, I kind of wrote it down, but it doesn't, I only really got the information about one of them. The other, they just showed the sketch of him. But the main one that was interacting with Rick, he described as being tall, 5'9", 5'10", skinny, gold-rimmed wire round glasses, and a mustache that, to quote him, looked really greasy and was probably a fake mustache. The other one, they just kind of flashed the image, and I kind of quickly scribbled down some things, but all I really got was that he was 6 foot to 6'2", dark to black hair, and he was more medium average build. So obviously there was a question of reliability of the sketches and descriptions of the suspects, because they only briefly saw them before having their faces taped up. They didn't appear... There's no video footage to confirm or match up to. And from what I could see, they actually ran 2 versions of the sketches. One with mustaches, one without mustaches. Because they've openly said it looked really greasy. It might have even been a fake mustache. So that's basically the rundown of what occurred. They then led them down to the basement, taped them up, covered their eyes, mouths, and so that's when they've kind of broken it down, the feds in the docuseries, and said that this was not impulsive. It was not a crime of opportunity. Firstly, it was planned out. Like, it has to have been planned out because they had uniforms, and from witness statements, both the Sekis and the witnesses that saw them in a car, they weren't just like a Halloween costume cop outfit. They had the right patches on them. They looked legitimate. Like, yeah, it was a proper Boston PD uniform, not just a generic stripper costume party kind of copper outfit. They also had the supplies. They had handcuffs and they had duct tape. Not to mention, the works that they took seemed to be pre-picked. Like either they have come in earlier and cased the museum to go, we want this, 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 and this, or someone else has done it and given them kind of a shopping list. Either way, they've gone in and taken specific things. They haven't just picked one gallery and stripped everything from it. They've gone for one gallery, walked around to another gallery, grabbed that, and then they've gone down a floor and grabbed one artwork from a different gallery. And that's where I got into the mention of, like, the fact that these works couldn't be fenced or anything, and the belief that these people might have been hired. So, because obviously if they were just stealing it for themselves, they're either really, really dumb, or they're just gonna, like, keep it hidden. But if they were hired, there would be reason for them to do this, and they might have then been hired by a private collector who's just gonna keep it, who's literally private about it, like, not gonna tell anyone and gonna keep it private. So then that leads to a comparison to another robbery, one that occurred in 1988 in Yarmouth, Massachusetts. This is a little spot where I was like, find out the distance between the two, and I didn't do that yet, so...
Okay, also, can we just appreciate this postcard that I'm up to?
He's riding a rabbit!
The back of it says, some cowboys use their favourite bronc for cattle punching, and some, as you can see, prefer the jackrabbit.
Okay, so Yarmouth is 75 miles or 120 kilometers away from Boston. And on July 21st of 1988, police were called out to a little museum called the Bangs Hallett House, where a robbery had occurred. So in this case, the robber had... I don't know if it was one... The assailant had entered through the back door, where they then overpowered the caretaker and taped her up, covering both her mouth and her eyes with duct tape. Sound familiar?
It does indeed.
They then stole 6 portraits, 200 pieces of scrimshaw, which I just Googled because I also didn't know what that is, which is scrollwork, engravings, and carvings done in bone or ivory. And they also stole a 13th century Chinese vase. similar to one of the 13 works stolen from the Gardner Museum. The bronze Chinese vase from the Shang Dynasty. So immediately, maybe not immediately, but like, yeah, a lot of comparison was drawn of, hey, these are quite similar. And the police officer that was investigating that 1988 robbery said that in the process, one name kept coming up, and that was the name Miles Connor. And his name came up
like
for good reason. Well, he is an art thief. He's actually the biggest art thief in Massachusetts. He had stolen a Rembrandt from the Museum of Fine Arts in 1975. And whoever took these works from the Gardner Museum was quite taken with Rembrandt, clearly. And he'd also robbed several other museums in his time as well. They mentioned in the docuseries that his father was a cop, his brother was a cop, and I think his uncle was a priest, and he liked to say, well, where did they go wrong?
He was an art stealer. Well, what a queen. I love it.
So obviously there was a lot of suspicion towards him in regards to both of these crimes. And he was involved in this docuseries, I'm just going to say that. Because he was in prison at the time of both of these robberies. So they weren't
Yeah, but
him.
I can still, imagine him, hiring someone to do it, him telling them exactly how to do it, and then him being involved in the docuseries, and then him going home at night and just opening up his, little, creepy cabinet, and then he has them all, and he's like, just made a docuseries about this.
So that
will never realize.
That then led to the question. So in 2010, thereabouts, some researchers picked up the case for the first time while it was cold, obviously, because it's still cold now. But they'd picked up the case to look into it and see, and they were like, okay, well, let's look at the facts that we know. What information do we have that we know that we can confirm? Let's look at that. And that led them to the question of how many things had to go right for this to happen and for the two men still be unidentified and not caught. So, here's that breakdown. Rick did the first shift of rounds at about midnight. Reportedly, he said that there were fire alarms that there was a fire alarm going off at approximately 12:45 with no fire, so he shut them off. He then returned to the desk to relieve the other guard, but in doing so, he actually goes and opens and then closes the front door. Oh, it's only opened and closed for about a second, and this was at about 1:01 a.m. So approximately 23 minutes before the cops arrive. Now, this opening and closing of the front door is apparently something that he did all the time, but he's the only guard that did so. And at first, when they mentioned that he opened and closed the front door, I was like, okay, so he went out for a smoke. But then they mentioned that it was only for a second or two. Not even long enough to let some fresh air in. Maybe he farted. I think I just cracked the case.
Maybe.
He needed to fart, and he
dusting.
didn't want to stink up the museum. Yeah. He's just being polite about needing to pass some gas. Mystery solved. We can go to bed.
Woo!
I was like, oh, maybe he's gone outside to have a smoke. That makes sense. But then it was only for a second, and also it was the 90s. People were still smoking inside at that time. We didn't realize that smoking kills.
Awkward.
So then, 1:24, the cops arrive and get buzzed in, and I don't know if they knew this or not, but Rick certainly did. by stepping out from behind the desk, he actually removed himself from the only means to call for police. Because there was a silent alarm behind the desk. But the second he stepped out from behind that desk, he didn't have access to that anymore. And then these robbers spent 81 minutes in the museum. Now, generally, when you hear a heist, a robbery, the goal is to get in and get out quickly. They seemed to kind of move with ease. 81 minutes is a long time. It's just shy of an hour and a half. It was as if they
Maybe they hadn't been to the museum before and they were just so struck by its beauty. No, 'cause they didn't know
Maybe.
what shit was.
But they've not really moved at a lot of pace. And at one point as well, the proximity sensor went off. I'm not sure what work it was for, but I think it was for the seascape. The proximity alarm went off when they were near it, and that also didn't seem to deter them. It was as if they knew that the police weren't coming.
Weird.
Because 81 minutes is a long time. As well as that, in the Dutch room, there was actually a secret panel behind one of the walls that opened up like a doorway leading downstairs into like a conservator's room or something. And when the police arrived the next morning, this panel was actually left ajar. So someone had opened it. And that obviously leads to the question of who would know that that was a door and that it was there. And as I mentioned, there were security cameras, obviously. However, it was 1990, so these recorded to a VHS system. And these thieves somehow knew where that VHS system was and removed the tape and took it with them. As well as there was motion sensors, but these immediately printed to a printer in the guard's office. Like any movement would come straight through on the printer so that they would hear it print and they would see it print, because it's like that old 90s style printer where it just kept pushing it out line by line. And the thieves ripped the sheet of paper and left with it. So nothing deterred them, apparently. Clearly, there was some inside information. They knew a lot about what was going on in this place. However, one thing that they didn't realize, probably because it was the 90s, was yes, the motion sensor reports printed straight out of the printer. There was also a hard drive. So they've actually been able to get that and access it and see all of the movement. And this is where it gets interesting. So remember how some of the works were taken from the Dutch room and the short gallery, both of which were on the second floor, and then another work was taken from the blue room on the first floor? Well, the only motion that was recorded in the blue room occurred at about 12:24 a.m. before the police got there and during Rick's rounds.
Rick.
It's also worth noting, remember the frame that I mentioned was found on a chair in the Secchi office? That was the frame for the Chez Tortoni. The painting that was taken from the blue room.
Oh, that's weird. I was just carrying it to a different...
This is where I made the note that obviously it was 1990 and it was very different to now in terms of forensics. Like the researchers mentioned that they wanted to kind of go back and test the tape to see if there were fingerprints on it. But they found that like what had been kept had not been handled very well. It was not very good. And there was very little stuff that they could actually go back and analyze forensically. So that already was a big no. So obviously there were 2 guards working that night, Rick and Randy. Randy only had a couple of hours notice of his shift, because the second guard that was originally supposed to be working with Rick called in sick earlier that day. And he was someone that did this frequently. Apparently the way they reported on it, it was, that he was an older man who was doing the job. He didn't really need the job, but he enjoyed the job. But if it rained too heavy the day before and it was going to be a bit treacherous to get out to his car or something, he was just like, yeah, I'm not coming in. So, just looking at Rick a little bit, who I will say also participated in the docuseries, and has owned up to some of this stuff in first part in his own words. Rick he was a 23-year-old in a band. He was a music student. A music dropout, I think, actually. He was a party boy. He had a history of showing up to work under the influence. He was working overnights. He'd probably go to a party and then come in. That would be under the influence of alcohol, drugs. He was a big stoner. He had also been known to have previously let people into the museum during his overnight shift. They mentioned that on January 1st of the same year, he let people into the museum to party for New Year's while he was heavily under the influence. How he still had this job, I don't actually know.
Yeah, what the fuck?
As I mentioned, he opened the door all the time and no other guard did this. And that frame was found on the chair. And just days before, he had actually handed in his resignation. So obviously this put some suspicion on him. And they had a tape recording of an interview with him not long after this, and he explained that he'd handed in his resignation because the job was getting in the way of playing with the band. And they also mentioned the fact that he previously had been quite outspoken about thinking the security system there was shit. And he was like, it was shit, but I'm also not the only person to be that outspoken about it. And they're like, well, they clearly had to have had inside information, which is where they jumped back to 1981 to prove that this wasn't the first time someone seemed to have a lot more information about this museum than they should have. Because in 1981, a federal agent walked into the museum, up to the front desk, and spoke to someone, showed his proof of, showed his ID, like his proof of role, and mentioned that he just thought that they should know someone had just been arrested. Someone named Royce, I think that was his last name, I forgot his first name, I didn't write it down, had been arrested because he had been casing the museum and was planning a heist of stealing 3 works, and that he clearly knew way too much about the inner workings of the museum. He had to have an inside source. So, doesn't necessarily mean it was Rick that was the inside source. Could have been anyone. And this is where the docuseries took a big turn for the rest of it, because then, maybe the first 20 minutes of episode 2 was breaking down Rick. And then the rest of episode 2 and all of episode 3 was about the mafia in Boston. And I was like, okay, this is kind of where I'm switching out in regards to notes, because there's too many names and too many things going on. Obviously, they have belief that there's a lot of mafia suspicion. Something's going on. Someone's cheering and yelling. So, all that I really have left is, just some nods to some, leads that didn't go anywhere. But, firstly, there was a tape that was released, 25 years after the fact, from the night before. Again, Rick letting someone in after hours, and you can just see this person coming in. And they were like, this tape has never been seen before. Can anyone identify this man? Ended up being an employee that had come in to collect something at the time or fix something. So it was not relevant. They ended up getting a call going, yeah, that's ex-employee that they were
Becky.
here because they... Yeah. Becky left her good hair behind. She came to pick it up.
No.
Then in 1990... so that was closer to now than this, but then they also mentioned in 1997, this guy that they just referred to as Youngworth, I think it was his last name, it might have been a nickname, who knows.
Weird.
He was an art connoisseur, a dealer of art, not of drugs, might have been of drugs, who knows. But he was also an old friend of Miles Connor's, and while Miles was in prison, he was the caretaker of his secret collection stash. And when he was arrested under different circumstances, suddenly he came forward saying that he had access to 11 of the 13 works and would assist in their return for immunity, the $5 million reward, and shortening Miles Connor's sentence, which is very interesting to me considering he also was reported as having been selling Connor's stash off piece by piece whenever he needed money behind Connor's back. So, bold, because I feel like if he got out early, you're in danger. But anyway, he was then working with the feds and a reporter from the Boston Herald. And basically, he was like, well, I'm not just going to hand them over until you hand me over what I'm asking for. And they're like, well, we're not just going to hand that over until you hand over the works. And they ended up at, like, a standoff. And so this reporter was like, okay, look. You pick a location. You just show me one of these works to prove that you have it. So that I can confirm, see it with my own eyes. I don't care if you immediately take it away, just so that I can confirm with them, like, yes, we have it. So they've taken him to this location. It's a dark room. And they've shown him the seascape. Room is dark. All they've done is run a flashlight over it. He's also not an art expert. He's a reporter. Yeah, they've shown him this work in the dark. They've just run a flashlight over it. He's looked at it. He's even seen the flashlight go over the signature. And he's like, like Rembrandt's signature. And he's like, that actually looks legit. And then he's gone and had a follow-up meeting with, they've immediately taken him away from that location and been like, okay, cool, now you've seen it. And he's gone and had a meeting with the curator of the museum and, other experts who have asked him specific questions, like, was there this in the left corner, like a crack or something? Did the paint chip in this way? And he's answered their questions, and basically it sounded like he was giving the right answers. So they're like, oh, that sounds like it's actually it, or it's just a really good forgery. So then he's been like, yeah, bestie, I'm gonna need some more from you. And Youngworth has then given them some photos of both the seascape and the Gentleman and Lady in Black, the two Rembrandt paintings that were taken. And they're like, these look like they're it, we think. And they're like, well, if the paint's already cracking, it can't be that hard to just take some paint chips to give to us to, have them analysed, right? So they get some paint chips and they have their, just to determine authenticity. Because again, they're still really pushing, we need these works back to give you what you're asking for. And he's like, well, I need what I'm asking for to give you the works. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen. So they've got this paint chip. They've had a scientist look at it, or an expert or whatever, and they've looked at it and gone, this is consistent with paint from Holland in that area, paint used in Holland in that era. I think this is legit. So they've then given that paint chip to the museum to also have their experts look into it. And they agreed that it was consistent. However, it didn't match any of the color, like the colors didn't match any colors used in either of the Rembrandt paintings taken. So it may have been taken from a different Rembrandt or a different painting from Holland from that era, but it wasn't consistent color-wise with the two that they were looking for. And then they also mentioned a woman named Donna Riesfelder, recalling helping her brother-in-law, who had been released from prison not that long prior to this and had ties with the mafia, as did Youngworth, helping him hang an ugly painting, those are her words, in a gold frame. She kept referring to it as a foo-foo frame, which I think is her way of saying it was faggy. Because she's like, it was a very girly frame. It was gold. I told him to change the frame and get a different frame, and he's like, no, I picked this specific frame. And she's like, it's a foofy frame, a foofy. And I'm like, are you trying to say it's faggy? Is that what you're getting at?
Like, just fucking say it, mate. If you're gonna be homophobic.
Anyway, she helped him hang the ugly painting in a faggy frame above his bed in 1990. So shortly after. Didn't know anything about what was going on at the time. And later, when she was contacted by the feds and the museum, she was like, no, he wouldn't have had anything to do with it. But then she was shown the missing works, and she kept being like, no. And then it got to the Shea Tortoni. Or as she kept calling him, Shea Tortellini. And she's like, oh, that's that hideous painting. So she realized that it may have been that at least. She was like, I'm pretty sure it was just as ugly. However, he died in 1991 of a cocaine overdose, and the painting wasn't found in his residence. Anyway, that's all that I have on the Gardner Museum heist. There is, I'm sure, a lot more. I'm sure I'll find out more when I finish watching the docuseries, but that was the stuff that I wanted, like the breakdown of what was missing, what was, like, a series of events that occurred, and then, yeah, I was not expecting it to go into, like, a long... I mean, I knew that there was suspected mafia in ties to it. I just did not expect for, like, the majority of the docuseries to be like, mafia this, mafia that, mafia this. Like, it's not what I'm here for. There's too many names being thrown around, and I'm really confused now. But yes, if you want a more in-depth breakdown of the case, I highly recommend going and watching This Is a Robbery on Netflix. It's 4 episodes, all just shy of an hour long, so about 4 hours more or less. Yeah.
On that note, we hope you enjoyed letting us set up some space rent-free in your heads, because we're broke as fuck and can't pay. Now, if you would like to give us some feedback, you can email us at rfimhpodcast@gmail.com, or you can chuck us a message on Facebook. If you just search Rent Free in My Head Podcast, it should pop up. Same on YouTube. You're welcome to comment on our YouTube videos, chuck us a like, chuck us a subscribe. And then you can also give us a stalk at RFIMH Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Or if you want to go that step further and stalk us individually, you can find Jeramie at
Jeramie Gage.
And me at Kirsty Lee. I don't know if we have any more social media. I can't think of any. Oh, we also have TikTok. Forgot about that.
I haven't been using it because...
That's fair. It popped up on my For You page the other day and I was like, oh. It's me.
That would be because
Scared
I
me for a
sent you a
second.
TikTok the other day and I'm signed in on that account.
Well, there you go, guys.
Which I
Mystery
keep
solved. Look at Jeramie solving a mystery for once. Proud of him.
Woo! Did it! Yes, I do need to get better at doing that, but that requires me finding the clip in the video and like in the video recording and doing it, unless we specifically organize some ones to do as well, which might be a good idea.
I also think it would be funny if we tried some of the TikTok trends, just because you and I are the most fucking uncoordinated people I've met in my life, and I just feel like it would be very entertaining.
I'm not that uncoordinated personally, but
I am, and I will bring you down with me.
I reckon let's do it. Let's give it a go. That will be a good thing to do when I show you how to edit, because I really need to do that.
Yes, you do.
Now Mateo's on my case about the fact that I need to do that.
Thanks.
Because I was exhausted on Monday, and he's like, well, maybe you should be splitting the editing in half. And I'm like, we will be when I get a chance to show her how.
Literally, though, it's not for lack of trying, Mateo. I would
Literally.
love to help. We just need to find time to do it together.
Yes.
Alright, well, I'm fucking exhausted, so...
Me too. I want to go play video games. Cool. Well, to the 5 of you that are here...
Love you.
Thank you for sticking around with us for 25 episodes. Hopefully, more of you come soon.
And hopefully,
but either
you
way,
loyal 5 stick around for 25 more.
Either way, we're having fun while we're doing it, so we're going to keep doing it. And you can just deal with that. But in the meantime, give us feedback, like we said, but also just spread the word. Try and get us 5 more. And then they can get us 5 more on top of that.
Send us
and
to
before
5
you know it,
friends.
Before you know it, we'll be at 15. And that's...
Woo! That's crazy.
That's
wow.
almost 20.
Wow.
That's almost old enough to drink in Australia. 15. It's almost. That's 3 years away.
Oh, I thought you meant the 20 thing, and I was like, we'd be
No.
2 years. The fuck are you on about? I'm not waiting until I'm 20. Wait, I'm 26. Okay.
Alright.
May the force be with you. Peace the fuck out. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers.
Don't force me to do anything. That's not how this
May
works.
the force be
Consent.
with you, Jeramie. It's got nothing to do with forcing you to do something. The force.
It's not May, it's September.
I hate you so much. You hurt me deeply.
But you don't.
Debatable.
Alright. Be a squatter, not an otter. Bye.
Bye.